Alright, you bastards, this is Some-Belgian-prepper, and today we're going to talk about how much time does a prepper have. But we're going to talk in a sense of time perceptive, or perception is the better word. But before we do that, if you're interested in detective stories, in the link there will be a link in the description where there will be a link to my book, first book called Bloody Crosses. It's in Dutch. If you're interested, just take a look. So. Time perspective, how you perceive time. It's actually something very important and often underestimated or even overestimated by preppers. I will give you some examples in some categories what I mean by, but the best thing you can do is um, the the best way to talk about this in a metaphor is a quote from Einstein who said, "1 minute in the presence of a beautiful girl is seems like a second, but 1 minute on sitting on a hot stove will feel like an eternity." So this is what I meant about perceiving time, because for some people time is going slow, for some people it going fast. In some situations it goes one way or the other, but yeah, I think it's could be life saving to train on this time perception. How can you train on this? First of all, know what kind of person that you are with time. There are certain people who have difficulties with time perception. Some of them are children. We all know when children are waiting in the line of the store, they can go into a tantrum, or if they ask for something like, for example, I went with my ex. I went onto a restaurant with her family, and one of the children always kept bugging me for playing with him at the swing or something. And I always told him, when the large, why is it, how do you say this, when the of a clock, when the big thing stands over there, I will go with you for so many minutes. And he kept asking for every 30 seconds, is it time already? So his time perception was very, very short in a way. But yeah, it's not only children, teenagers. We all know how teenagers can operate. You say, be home at 11 o'clock, and guess what, they will be home at 1 o'clock, because they lose time, because their brain works in a different way, and they are being distracted too much on a socially way. So that's another thing. Another thing is people who have certain, I will not say disorders, but who have certain things going on, like ADHD, who we function way too fast, and they perceive time on a whole different level than most people. Another thing is people that live in cities. There is a big difference that I've learned between people who live in a city and people from the countryside. People in the countryside are usually more relaxed with time. Things don't have to be planned by minute. If you go to a bar in the countryside, who know when we get back? But in a city, it will be like, you go to a bar. I have to go now. Now I have to go to dinner at that o'clock. I have to go to work at that o'clock. I have a meeting at time. So in a city, everything works within certain hours, and people are being more stimulated, and that will also be used in the perception of time. Um, and another thing is people who have addictions, people who are addicted, and it could be to anything. It's not only drugs. People who have addiction to hard drugs, and they want their fix, that they perceive time differently. It's also people who are addicted to other things, like gaming. If you have somebody who has some addiction to gaming, you will see them at work being like, well, I want to go home. I want to go home. The day is so long. I need to game. So yeah, that's another thing. What is another thing that people can get addicted to? Uh, yeah, there are so many other things perhaps that you can get addicted to. Could be even sex or something. I need to go home to with a wife. How long does it take around here? Yeah, those are things. Another thing is people who have jobs that acquire to be on time. I'm talking about people who have a job where they have to be on time for very precise. I'm talking about people who work in the post office, or are mailmans. or the delivery guys, people who work in a job where they need to be on time, like a fireman, policeman, garbage man, people who have to be at certain times, and that could go into their personal life also, and then they can perceive time differently than other people. So yeah, um, yeah, I'm rambling a little bit on this topic, but yeah, that is the sort of people who could have trouble, having some trouble with time. People from the military, for example, also. Yeah. So, time perspective. Why is this important for a survival situation? If you can learn how to perceive time, you can divide your time, your resources, and your planning better in a way. I'm going to give you some examples how time perception works in certain events in my life. For example, a week ago, I was on vacation in France, and yeah, I wanted. We were sleeping on a camping, but the camping was a little bit further away from a small village, and the thing was, I like to do a walk, and I every morning I went to a bakery in the small village, and I took the same road, but there was something weird going on with this road, because in my mind it was very stupid. Every morning I had something in my mind like, I'll be back at that time. It's not that far. But when I did the road, it was longer than I expected. And even though I did the road several times, every morning I made the same mistake of thinking I'll be back at that time. But the road, there was something weird. The road was in a forest, was white with white sand. I was running in the same loop. So in my mind, it was much shorter than it really was. But it's because it was always the same kind of road, but longer stretch out. But in my mind, it worked totally different. So it always took a lot longer get to go to the village and get back than I participated, even though I did it multiple times. So that's a sort of weird brain thingy that's going on, perceiving time and distance. Albert Einstein would have had a field day with that. Another thing is, for example, we all know hunger. Yeah, I would not say really hunger, because we all feel a little bit peckish. We all know at work, you look at the clock, you say it's 10 o'clock. Well, it's so long till lunch break and I'm hungry now. It's not really that. It's you perceive it because of all the stress factors that are playing in your day, and because you do not want to be there. So time works also differently in that way. And yeah, for example, I could go days without food, and yeah, it could be in the first days, it could be a little bit annoying, hungry, peckish, but from day three, I don't have hunger, and then time is changing in a way. So yeah, when you're hungry, time will look more dire, is what I'm trying to say. Even though you're just a little bit peckish, but how your mind perceive it could go in a psychophysical way to your body, if you on how you perceive time according to yourself. Another thing is that could be very so yeah. The point I was trying to make with the hungry thing is, if you're in a survival situation and you think you feel really hunger, and you think I only have the rule of three, I have so many days I till I starve to death. No, that's just your time perspective. You can go much longer, but because you're in a dire situation, you feel stressed. You feel that you're not sure about the future, and that's why you perceive time very more dire than it really is. And if you feel dire towards reaching a certain goal within a certain time, like hunger, then you're going to make mistakes doing things too fast. For example, hunting takes a lot of patience, and you have to perceive the same time as the animal perceives time, because you cannot hunt an animal, whether it's by hunting actively or trapping it. uh, you have to base your hunting on the time perception of the animal, is what I'm trying to say. So takes a lot of patience, and when you're hunger and you let the hunger take your perception of time feel like dire, then you're going to do things too fast. You're going to make more mistakes, and you're going to be even more hungrier because of the stress and because of the mistakes that you make. That's what I'm trying to say. The same thing goes with water. There was a moment in my life when I decided to go to with my bug out bag, going to the Netherlands, which is very far away. And on the map, I always saw water sources like I can reach it before I can reach it at that certain time, but it was much longer than I perceived with the time in my head to reach it. With the problem that I got really thirsty. I was actually close to dehydration. The first, not the first, but far up, not dire, but I was into the zone of dehydration. My lips were totally dried out, and I started to feel a dry throat, and yeah, with all the symptoms of dehydration. Yeah, it was not really a good day, but it was because I took perception of time uh, in a wrong way, and that way I got almost dehydrated because yeah, I did not refill my water because I thought I would reach it on time. So that's a big mistake that I'm not going to make again. But yet again, time perception was a big mistake of mine in that scenario. Right. Next thing is resting. What do I mean by resting? Is we all say that I don't have time for that, but if you do have time, you do not have time to do chores. But chores are usually something that people don't like to do. And when you take a break, it could go from 5 minutes to 10 minutes and to half an hour to an hour, and that way you lose an hour while you perceive it as shorter. Like it's like the quote with Einstein that I said: if you're going to rest or say I just play one video game till I'm going to do that, we all know how we were as children when your mom said go do your chores and you said just one more game, mom, and you went an hour further and you still not have done the shore. That's the same thing that a lot of people still have with shores, especially in a survival situation where you are dependent on the shores or the task to do them. And if you are distracted by whether it's by playing, whether it's by music, reading, or just resting out. Even resting could be like within an half an hour we will pack our gear and just go further. But yeah, if nobody says we're leaving now, then it could happen that half an hour turned into three quarters of an hour, into an hour, even longer, especially when you lose sight of time. And yeah, you could lose a lot of time in that way, and that could be dangerous in certain situations, like I said in the bug out, when with the hunger, with the thirst. Perhaps you need to be out on time for at a certain point for evacuation. Who knows? Yeah. Another thing is waking up. Um, I don't know if it's me personally, but there was a certain period of time that I always was obsessed with being on time. Being on time was for me the most important thing. It was almost on a military scale that I had to be awake at that. I had to wash up at that. I had to get out of the house at that, and I need to be at work at that, with certain time leaving for traffic jams, for unforeseen circumstances. I was really obsessed with it, and now I'm not really that obsessed with it. I'm more relaxed, perhaps because I'm getting older, because perhaps I work 4/5 now, and I do not care anymore about time. Is perhaps another thing that changed with me. But I noticed a big difference with it. I used to wake up a few minutes before my alarm clock went off, and yeah, it was almost like automatic. I woke up, I look at my clock, and I see I still have a few minutes. But it's dangerous when you go snoozing then. So, but I'm going to talk about that in another other video. But now I just wake up when the alarm clock is going off. I do not have that tendency anymore to have a strict biological clock. But if you train that biological clock, it could be helpful in certain survival situations, that you wake up early in the morning to collect dew or to be out on time, or you can take most of the day for hunting, foraging, getting food. So yeah, that could be handy if you if you learn your body to perceive time, it's like a biological clock. And yeah, it could be helpful for like I said, for getting the most task out of the day instead of laying in bed till noon, is so to say. So another thing is patience. The perceiving time as patience could be very helpfully, because I've seen so it is something that really pisses me off when people get stopped by the police, and the first thing they do is, "Ah, I'm going to lose so much time. They need to get at a certain place at a certain time. They cannot be bothered," and they start to get aggressive, verbally, sometimes even physical. They start to get annoying, and if you give that bad energy to a cop or a bureaucratic person, guess what they will do? They will be more annoyed, and they will do exactly the opposite that you want. So if you have that need of, I need to be at time at something, and it annoys me to a certain point that I would even get aggressive on a verbal and a physical way, do something about it, because that if you have to do something bureaucratic, if you have to deal with the police and they're taking the time, you need to take your time, learn to take your time too, even though you have shit to do, because otherwise you will make it worse for you. And as a prepper, that could be very helpfully that you can control yourself and not feeling the to doing an outburst because you need to feel the time to get somewhere. um, the travel time. What do I mean by that? If you're going to travel somewhere, whether it's for perhaps a city trip, perhaps you have to get somewhere, perhaps you're going to travel for a vacation. um, for some people, it could be very, very hard to perceive time. For some people, the travel is fun. So in the time that they perceive that they're doing about it is shorter than somebody who is annoyed with the travel. They think, I start and I need to get somewhere as fast as possible. They get annoyed, and the time is even longer. So when the time is even looks even longer, you will get bored, and that could be dangerous, because if you get bored during a travel with, for example, a car, you will get sleepy, you will get bored, you get dazed out a little bit, and you have more chance for traffic accidents, to make a mistake, to take a wrong route, and you have to take a detour and will take even more time. So yeah, that kind of perception of time is also something that you need to learn, and could be helpfully for being safe in any situation actually. So yeah, so how can you deal with time? So what would I propose to preppers to do about this? I would say train for it. I would say make a certain habit. If you're somebody who's, I would say, be a balance, like it stands on my arm. Balance is key to life. Keep a balance. Try to be a person who gets up on time to be at time at work, but also, if you perceive it also as, if you have to get on time at somewhere and it does not go like the way you want, just relax. It's not the end of the world. And yeah, like I said, keep balance. You can do it by training yourself on it. You can do it by not only by keeping tabs on time, because I always have the habit to. It's kind of weird actually, because I can look at time. Some days I can just keep looking at the time, and yeah, it's not really bothering me. But I like to know what time it is. And some days when there is not a clock, I have the perception in my body that I know what time it is. As people, when people ask me, for example, at work, they ask what time is it, I can guess it from what I feel like. I can say it's almost 10 o'clock. Somebody verified it. Yeah, it's only 10 minutes before 10 o'clock. So my body is actually kind of on score within a certain reason, within a reason time before I that I'm kind of close with my perception of time, is what I'm trying to say. I know I keep rambling about this, but yeah, it is something that you need to learn with your own body and with your own mind, because it's not only your body, your biological clock, but also mentally. It's about having awareness, perhaps, is the best word that I can describe about it. If you have awareness to your surroundings, you can guess the time with your body and also with your time, and perhaps with how much time you perceive that has gone by since the last time you checked. So yeah, those are the things that you can do. And for yeah, so yeah, I think I'm ready with this rant. It's just some idea that I needed to get out of off my chest. So yeah, I hope it will help you create some new ideas in your survival planning, your survival mentality. And if you have any other tips that you can do for this, besides military tips, because I'm trying to be more relaxed than that. I'm not that guy who's just wakes up within 5 seconds and is already out of the sleeping room. So yeah, I'm talking about just tips, perhaps former tips, because I'm interested in people who do not keep tabs on time for that constantly, unlikely to city people. What do rural farmers do is for how do they perceive time? If you have any experience with that, so please let me know in the comments. I'm always eager to learn new things, and hope you to see you in the next video. So cheers, thank you, and see you in the next video.